Hello, YouTube. This is Mike. And today I thought I'd check in on the doing the 4 things and recovering from BPD abuse channel. And so today's video is entitled, wait, what did I title it? Loving a Borderline, Why You Think You Are the Only One Who Can Handle Their Moods. Codependence. All right. So it is my experience that people who end up watching my channel are people who are at some stage of misery. You're in pain. You've been damaged and hurt and traumatized by being in love with a borderline. All right, so let me be clear about what this channel is about. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a licensed any kind of mental health professional whatsoever. I am simply an average guy who got into a relationship with somebody who was an untreated, undiagnosed borderline, probably comorbid MPD. And it was easily the most concentrated, toxic experience of my life. That's saying a lot. I've been through a lot. But in, instead of spreading it out over a long time, it was a concentrated, horrifically devastating, extremely devaluing, depressing, horrific experience. It destroyed me. And after that relationship, I was, I was as close to being, putting a gun to my head or jumping off a cliff as a person can be without actually doing it. And I did the 4 things. And the 4 things not only got me back to my old self, but it helped me to completely heal from that relationship. Hang on, I gotta take this. Hello? I haven't checked. I'm on a business call at the moment. Okay, great. I'll let you know if it didn't come through. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. All right, so what was I saying? That was me booking a ticket out of Australia. Anyway, so it was the most devastating, horrific experience of my entire life. If you're watching this channel, it's because you relate to that on some level. If dating a borderline is one of the most wonderful, empowering experiences you've ever had, you're not going to come onto my channel. You're not going to come watching my videos. So let's be real about that. But I also understand the dynamic. When you get involved with a borderline, it creates a dynamic where you are now in an intense video game where you're trying desperately to get this unpredictable creature to turn around and love you. And you will tell yourself anything and everything to make that happen. You are addicted to their love when it is good, and when it's not, you are absolutely, completely, totally focused 100% on doing whatever it is you think you can do to get it to work. The illusion that is created by both parties, both the borderline and you, is that you have some power in this situation, that you have some choice, and that you have this magical ability. If you could just perfect it, if you could just perfect this magical ability, you could be the one special person to have that unicorn. The magical unicorn that is the borderline, the mermaid, the being from another dimension. And you have to know what the skills are. And they tell you that you are responsible, that what you do will affect how they feel. And so you have to make sure that you know what you're doing and what not to do, and it becomes your fault. You're responsible. So in order to make the relationship work, you tell yourself that you are actually a superhuman being. You're actually a super being who has abilities far beyond those of mortal men. You become Superman. Your borderline makes you feel that when they are loving you and treating you amazingly, they will tell you that you're the most amazing person in the world, blah, blah, blah. And when they are not in such a good mood, they will tell you it's your fault that they're upset. And that if you could just figure out how not to trigger them or how to communicate to them properly so that they don't flip out. And so you buy into the illusion that it's your responsibility. And why do we do that? Because underneath it all, what you want more than anything is you want them to love you. In fact, your whole existence is wrapped up in them loving you. And if you can just get that to happen, it'll all be okay. And so in order to keep the dynamic going within yourself, you tell yourself that you have the power. And they tell you that you have the power. So if it didn't work out and they flip out, it was your fault. You didn't do something. You did or didn't do something. And you either have to learn what not to do or what to do. And they will tell you on a daily basis, I need you to do this, I need you to talk to me like this, I need you to say this way, and I need you to blah, blah, blah. And if you do that, then I won't be triggered. So it's your responsibility not to trigger me. Unfortunately, that's not what's happening at all. The triggering is happening completely, totally outside of you. You have nothing to do with it. You are the excuse. The triggering is waiting to happen, and their mind finds an excuse. And, we all do this. They will find an excuse that they can rationalize to themselves. They will find an excuse, you farted and looked at your watch, and that was the worst possible, rudest thing anybody could ever do. And because you did that, you have completely, totally devalued them, and you should know better. You should never look at your watch when you're with your borderline, because they know what that really means. It means that you can't wait to get out of there and break up with them, or you're going to go look on your phone and talk to that other woman you've been dating. But when they're idealizing you, if you fart and look at your watch, it's the funniest thing that anybody could have ever done. And in fact, your farts smell like unicorn burps. So this idea that you have some power to do anything to them, that is your grandiosity. So I'm going to read a comment here. Now, bear in mind, I don't think people leave comments on here unless they actually, at least on some level, want to have a conversation about it. If it's a comment that I feel is worthy of responding to, it means that I've felt that same way, and or many other people feel that. And so it's good for us to examine this. So let's be clear what this channel is about before I get into that. This channel is about doing the 4 things. And my suggestion is always, always has been and always will be, the answer to any of your questions is to do the 4 things. If you're dating a borderline who is toxic, then there's only, in my experience, there's only 4 things you can do to get your power back. The first one is you go completely no contact. You block your phone, you block your email, you block everything so that they cannot contact you. It's not personal. It's not about them. It's not about hurting them or anything like that. It's about you separating yourself from the thing that you are addicted to. When you quit doing heroin, you have to completely quit doing heroin and stop hanging around heroin dens and hanging around. You have to completely cut yourself off from it. So you have to treat yourself like an addict. You're addicted to this game of trying to get this amazing mermaid, alien being, unicorn to love you. You have to give up on that fantasy, and you have to separate yourself from it. So you have to go no contact. Then the second thing you do is you get yourself into some 12-step group, whether it's Coda or I don't care what 12-step group you want. And you work all the 12 steps with a sponsor and then sponsor somebody else. And while you're doing that, you get into therapy with a psychologist. That's step number 3. And step number 4 is to do some kind of daily meditative practice, which is really just step 11. When you do those 4 things with everything you have, in my experience, you will heal from the pain. That's it. That's the only thing I promise you. You will heal from the pain of that relationship, and that relationship only. Probably other things will get healed as well, but the only thing I can guarantee you is that the thing that is driving you crazy, the insane search to find out whatever it is that you think that you are responsible for in order to get this unicorn to let you ride it, that craziness has to stop. And the 4 things are the only way out of it. I'm going to prove to you. We're going to listen to some people who are well-meaning, who are wonderful, beautiful people who deserve love and happiness. I have no judgment on them. I relate to them. But they are trapped in a delusion that they can't get out of. And the unconscious message of this comment that I'm going to read, underneath that, the unconscious message is, please help me, I can't get out. I'm miserable and I can't escape. So let's go ahead and read it. This is somebody who's been on my channel before. I recognize the name. I don't know exactly what our interaction was. They've left comments before. I already know this person, I mean, by definition, hasn't done the 4 things. But, you know, again, people know what my channel is about. And so when people come on my channel and they want to show why they're different, and here's the way that you can make it work, it's kind of insane. It's like going into an AA meeting and sitting there with a Jack Daniels and talking about how you can manage your drinking, even though you're an alcoholic. It's just crazy. Nobody's going to want you there. There's nothing for you to gain by being there. Coming here on my channel and trying to explain to all of us how you perfected the method of riding unicorns is a waste of time, because that's not what we do here. So it means that on an unconscious level, you really want me to help you with your denial. So I'm going to do what I can. Not that I have any special powers, because I don't. So in response to one of my earliest videos when I was actually just walking away, so if you want to watch this and see what was going on with me, however long ago it was, almost 2 years ago, where I was completely, totally devastated and just had gone no contact. You can watch the video. Borderlines will cause devastation to your sanity and self-esteem. In response to that, this person says, should be titled, most likely could devastate. And then let's go on and listen to what he has to say. Because most men and women don't have the ability to play along and enjoy the ride. Borderlines are like roller coasters, right? So either you tense up and let it bother you, or relax and enjoy the wild ride. We have the same ability to control ourselves as a borderline does. After a few bad episodes, I learned that I have the same, all caps, responsibility to control myself and triggering her as she does to him. We, in all caps, all need therapy, so let's stop writing on the, all caps, fallacy that borderlines ruin everything, because if they can't help feeling more extreme emotions, then it's our responsibility to, all caps, communicate how to prevent hurting feelings, just as we should in any normal relationship. Yes, I've sacrificed quite a bit with her, but I would with anyone else. Point is, every borderline in each relationship is different. Learn what triggers them and each other, and have a technique or process that you can both agree to do in case of an emergency. And I'm emergency. All right, so everything Patrick said, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to give his name. Everything this person has said is absolutely correct in what he terms normal relationships. So let's be clear, what is it that makes a borderline different than a normal person in relationships? Because that's what this is about. Listen, borderline personality disorder is a spectrum. There's no one person, no one borderline is the same as anybody else. They're just like every other human being. They have their own unique personality and traits and strengths and weaknesses. And so what is it that they all share in common in relationships? Because that's really what happens. What we're talking about here is in relationships. The one thing that all borderlines have in common in romantic relationships is they split. If you're with somebody that doesn't split, by definition, they're not a borderline. That means you could be with some unpredictable, emotionally dysregulated person who's a wild ride. But if they don't split on you, they're not a borderline. They might even have borderline tendencies. But a borderline will split. So splitting is they go from idealizing you to absolutely hating you. You go literally in 1 second from becoming the best thing that's ever happened to the most dangerous, hurtful, horrible being that's ever lived. When that happens, it happens not because of anything that you've done. They will tell you it's because of something that you've done, but that's has nothing to do with that. It's an internal process that happens within them. So what you just described is not a borderline relationship. You're describing being with somebody who's immature and has a lot of mood swings. But you haven't mentioned anything that even comes close to describing a split. So either one of two things is going on here. Either you're dating somebody that's not a borderline, or you are purposefully fibbing to us about the extremity of what's happening. Or number three, you haven't been with that person long enough to see them split. Right? So let's focus on that. You haven't been with somebody long enough to see them split. But there is a difference between experiencing a borderline with their emotional dysregulation and a full-blown split. I've called emotional dysregulation micro splits because that's what they are. They will get upset. They will have something to argue with you about. They will blame you for something. They might cause some drama. They will definitely make you feel threatened, as though that they're going to perhaps end the relationship. But there's something that you do, or there's something that they do within themselves where they bring themselves back and they make it all work. That I would call either a micro split or it's just emotional dysregulation. They're emotionally dysregulated. It means that they can't regulate their reactions to their emotions. They have intense ups and downs. It's not the same as a split. When they split on you, there's nothing that you can say to them. There's nothing that you can do. In fact, anything that you do when they're splitting will be interpreted in the worst negative way possible. And if there's something that you can say that might stop them, then I would call that a micro split, or I would call that you're helping them in their state of emotional dysregulation, and they're able to monitor that, manage that, and reel themselves back in. But when they split on you, they have no control over what they do. In fact, a true split, many times they will recede back, and they literally watch themselves as they psychopathically destroy you. And that could be that they're looking at you and calling you names, or they're throwing knives at you, or they're slashing your tires, or it could mean that they completely, totally disappear and they go within, or they climb under the covers, or they just disappear, or they turn their phone off. These are all different ways of splitting, and they're all very extreme. And they're all, when they happen, they are permanent in their mind. They act as though this is a permanent thing. That would be a lot more tolerable if they did that. The first time that they split on you, it was permanent. If that happened, there would be a lot less damage, because then you would get over it. You would move on. But they don't, because they're borderline. Even though at the time they split, it is real, it is permanent. 2 weeks later, 2 months later, a year later, they've changed their mind and they realize that you are the one that they've always wanted. Or sometimes the next day. They wake up the next day, and because they are borderlines, they dissociate. They remember that something like that happened. Oh yeah, I remember there was a person that had my name and looked like me, and they stabbed you in the eye with an ice pick. I remember that. It was a movie I was watching. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I'm perfectly fine with you. I wake up right now and I feel good with you, and so why are you so upset? That was yesterday. Today's a whole new day. This is Groundhog Day. Right? All right. So let's take a look at, again, where I was wanting to go with that, which is somebody that has not experienced a split yet. So my thinking is that this person has potentially not experienced a full-blown split. Certainly at the moment, right now, he's not being split on. Because if he was, we would be having a different discussion. But let me take a look at another person who I believe is on the hamster wheel. This isn't a judgment, by the way. Everything that I am seeing in them, I did. I was on that same hamster wheel. I believed that I truly was the one. I was the only one. I really believed it because of who I was and my special understanding about life and my life experience. I was the only one that could fix this borderline, and I was going to do it. I had superpowers that nobody else had. In fact, I was the special one. She loved me. Her connection with me was truly special. She's never had that kind of connection with anybody else, and therefore, because of that special connection, I was going to be able to be the one to fix her. Right? I was wrong, and so are you. Let's see here. So let's look at this one here. This person says, I'm a codependent, learning and trying to understand my state of mind, and it's incredibly helpful. I could get into that, but anyway, been an intensive group therapy. All right, so listening to your channel reassures me of my mental condition. I'm going to have to come back to that. He's mentioned that twice now. Still with my borderline girlfriend who is in, I don't know what that is, I guess some kind of therapy, hoping we can work through our sickness as well, because I believe we are both low on the spectrum of our conditions. And I bet you're thinking, fuck no, it can't happen, but it's worth a try if things have been getting better. All right, so again, this channel is not about helping people manage their borderline relationships. I'm not saying that that's not a possibility. I don't know. I've never experienced that. I know that there are borderlines if they get in therapy, especially if they've been in therapy for a long time and they do it really thoroughly, like they do DBT therapy, group therapy, and they do that DBT workbook exercise every day, that after years of doing that, they can learn to manage their symptoms. Perhaps they can stay in a relationship and make it work. I personally wouldn't volunteer for that experiment, but anything is possible. So for all I know, things may work out for this person. But again, why would you want to do that? Why? Why would you want to do that when there are people out there that won't put you through that? Why? I know why. Because it's addicting. You have a need to get your mommy and daddy fix from them. Anyway, I won't get into all of that. But so this person focuses on his state of mind. That doesn't mean anything. I'm sorry to tell you, but your state of mind is meaningless. Learning to understand your mental condition is meaningless. That's mental masturbation. You're telling, I've had one person come on here and say, being with the borderline was the best thing for me because I had this opportunity to really look at my family dynamic, and when they would stimulate me, I could go back into my family dynamic. I mean, that is all lies you tell yourself. Because the whole point of that family dynamic was to teach you not to throw your soul away and give away your power to somebody else, not stay in a relationship that is based on a transaction. So it is impossible to be in a truly loving relationship with an untreated borderline. And I might even say I don't know. Maybe I haven't ever been with a borderline who's managed their symptoms, so I don't know what that's like. Again, I wouldn't volunteer for that experiment myself. But if you're with a borderline that is not able to manage their symptoms, which means that they're toxic, then you are in a transactional relationship. In other words, you are not loved for who you are. You are loved for what you do for them. And this is codependence. This is the definition of codependence. Codependence is you seek to be loved for what you do, not for who you are. And in fairness to the borderline, you are also doing the same thing to them, because you are with them for the way that they make you feel when they are projecting their infantile love on you, when they are worshiping you, when they're idealizing you. You love them for that. You also love them for the chaos that they bring into your life, because being a good codependent, you can't tolerate the thought of being loved for who you are. You get your value based on what you do for others. So to go back to the first comment, that guy who talks about he's responsible, he has the ability to manage and control her triggering, his sense of worth comes from that delusion that he has the power to do the right thing, to be a good boy, to know how to communicate in a very special way that only borderlines can handle, which is totally different from normal people, where you just tell a normal person what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and they respond with what they're thinking and what they're feeling. No, with a borderline, you have to know exactly how to say it, when to say it, what to say, and if I can figure out what the triggers are and avoid them, then I will be a good person and she will love me. This is a transactional relationship, and it is the definition of codependence. And so you love them for that, because you have a negative relationship with yourself. You don't truly love yourself for who you are. You love yourself for your performance. And the first guy's comment, his value comes from learning how to manage the borderline. And that's where he gets his worth. And that's why she's with me, because I know what to do for her. If you notice that, let's go back. Notice that there's nothing in the comment that says anything about her loving him for who he is, her appreciating him that doesn't have anything selfish associated with her. There's no description of what we would consider to be love, because that's what love is. If you've ever had a true love relationship, and I have, a true love relationship is when you're with somebody, you're not thinking about yourself anymore. You are thinking about the pleasure you get from making them be themselves. Just being themselves, just watching them be who they are is enough for you. And vice versa. You don't have to try and get them to love you or get them to accept you. They accept you and love you simply because you exist. You have a bad day, they want to help you with that. You have a good day, they want to applaud that. So your love isn't based on what you do. Because if you're in that truly loving relationship, then because you care unconditionally for somebody, you don't have to worry about, am I doing the right thing right now? So let's go back and listen to that again, and you're going to see there's nothing in his description that says anything about how this person just sees him for who he is and loves him for who he is. Most men and women, this is him talking now, most men and women don't have the ability to play along and enjoy the ride. What does that mean? That means that you are a victim of circumstance. You don't have any control over the ride. You just have to sit back and enjoy it. Where in that does it talk about how somebody is there for you, loves you, takes care of you? I don't hear it. Borderlines are like a roller coaster, right? What happens? You pay a ticket, you get on a ride, you strap in, and you have to just hang on. You have no control. It has nothing to do with who you are. You just have to ride that roller coaster. So you either tense up and let it bother you, or you relax and enjoy the wild ride. Where in that do you hear about not having to tense up or let go? Just being yourself and the joy of having somebody be there with you while you enjoy your life. No, you have to either tense up or let go. You have to do something in order to survive. After a few bad episodes, he says, I learned that I have the same responsibility to control myself and triggering her. There's no talk about him being triggered. There's no talk about her responsibility triggering him. It's about him controlling himself and not triggering her. And he says, we all need therapy. What does that mean? So let's stop riding on the fallacy that borderlines ruin everything. Well, if you're with somebody that doesn't split on you for nothing that you've done, then you're not with a borderline. Then if you are with a borderline, it means that they split on you because of nothing you've done, and they will punish you for their internal experience. So if you're saying that it's a fallacy that borderlines ruin everything because of their mental illness, then you're not with a borderline. If you're with a borderline, that's the definition of being with a borderline. The definition of being with an untreated toxic borderline is that at some point they are going to have an internal response to the intimacy that you provide, which will cause them to act destructively towards you and in a very devastating way, in a way that you had no responsibility over. If that doesn't describe you, you're not with a borderline. So this is somebody who's lying to themselves. Again, it's classic codependence. I'm a superhuman. I have to figure out. I mean, why would you want that? That is so, that's going to do nothing but drain you. There's nothing in it for him. What is he getting out of it? He has to be 100% completely on top of himself all the time. He's got to watch all of his thoughts and his feelings and how he says things. And, you know, is he going to trigger her? I have to take full responsibility for any of my negative feelings. But, you know, I have to, where's the fun in that? Why would you want to do that? I mean, I'm saying those are rhetorical questions. I understand why, but you know, when you step back, there's none of that sounds like anything I would want to be in. He says, if they can't help feeling more emotions, then it's our responsibility to communicate. In other words, if you just communicate correctly, it'll all be okay. I have shared this numerous times on this channel. I remember watching a video from a borderline who was talking about how basically that if you're with a borderline, it's your responsibility to make sure to know exactly how that person needs to be communicated to. And if you don't communicate to them exactly the way that they want, then it's basically your fault that they flip out on you. And she went on to say, you know, describe that, you know, sometimes I need you to hold me like this and put this hand here and do this and say this phrase to me and hold me like that. And I'm watching it going, wow, even if what you're saying is true, it means that the other person's honest, sincere motivation is meaningless, which means we're talking sociopathy. You have no interest or empathy or connection to the other person's actual thoughts, feelings, and intentions. You're only wrapped up in your own experience of what you, in your fantasy, want them to do to you, which is pure narcissism. It means that this is how you want to touch yourself, and you want them to be the robot that does exactly how you program them. And this is what he's talking about here. He says that it's his responsibility to communicate in a way that won't trigger them. Meaning that there's a way that you can communicate honestly, with love, with positive intention, that if anybody else listened to that, they would be able to feel and intuit and take what you say without having to analyze everything that you do or say. So what you're saying is this person is incapable of seeing you for who you are, accepting you for who you are, and accepting your gift of love in your own beautiful way. That's not good enough for them. And then again, the question is, why would you want to be with that person? Let's see. Is there any other comments I want to look into here? This guy who's been with his borderline for how long? Doesn't say, but he's only been with his borderline for a little while. So let's talk about this idea of spectrum. So he has determined, I don't know where he gets that his borderline is low on the spectrum. And then he says that he's also low on the spectrum. He says, I believe, which that doesn't mean anything. How does he know what gives him that belief? He says, I believe we are both low on the spectrum of our conditions. And I have never heard of a spectrum when it comes to codependence. Codependence is a dynamic. It's like, and I say here in my response to him, it's like being addicted to heroin. When you start off, the first time that you put heroin into I've never done heroin, so I don't know, but I imagine the first time you put it in there, right, you haven't become a full-blown addict. You enjoy it, but now that the beginnings of that addiction are there because, wow, that feels really good. I can't wait to do that again. So you're low on the spectrum. But every time that you put it into your system, you go much higher on the spectrum, and it is guaranteed you will end up becoming physically dependent. You will be high on the spectrum of heroin addiction. Codependence is the same way. Codependence is not a mental disorder. There isn't a spectrum for it. The more that you engage in a codependent relationship, the more intense the codependent dynamic increases. So even if I take him at, give him the benefit of the doubt, and according to him, he's low on the spectrum, that would mean that there's a low drama factor. And so his codependence is on a low spectrum. That's going to change the moment that she splits on him. The moment that she splits on him and then hoovers him and then splits on him and hoovers him, his codependence is going to go through the roof. He seems to think that he has this mental condition, that if he can manage his mental condition like the other guy, he's saying the same thing. If he can manage his reaction to her, and if he can manage, communicating to her perfectly, then his understanding of his mental condition will protect him. And it won't. That's part of the delusion. That's part of the insanity of codependence, is this delusion that you have some power, and you don't. Borderlines have a mental illness. It is a predictable thing. You can predict how they are going to act in relationships. Yes, they're all different. They all have their own personalities. But the fact that they have the one thing in common, which is that in romantic relationships, they split. That splitting never decreases. It always increases. For them, it's their addiction. So if you're doing Heroin, the first time you only need X amount. Next time you're going to need this much, and then this much, and then you're going to need it more often. When they split on you, that is them having, I don't know what metaphor to use, but it's their reaction to their addiction to you. They're then going to hoover you back, but guess what? They're going to split again, but it will take less time, and the split will be worse. So each time they split, it's worse than the time before. And each time they split, the time in between the splits gets shorter and shorter. And that's exactly like drug addiction. First I only need it once a month. I only need it once every 2 weeks. I only need it once a week. I only need it once a day. I only need it twice a day. The frequency gets closer and closer the more that you do it. When you're with a borderline, they're going to split on you. They're going to split on you, closer together. But each time they come back and hoover you, you're going to delude yourself that we finally did it. We've finally come to the end. We've gotten deep. We've gotten to the true subject of the issue, and now we can move on. But both of these guys think that they're superhuman. Both of these guys that I've just mentioned think that they have the ability to control their response. And they have the ability to control their partner's response. And when you think about that, again, where is the love? At what point do you just allow yourself to be loved by somebody? Never. You're never truly seen. You're never experienced. Nobody ever loves you for who you are. Your job is based on your love, your worth is completely based on your performance. What you do or don't do. Either internally, because you think some way of understanding yourself and monitoring yourself, or your ability to relax and enjoy the ride, or your ability to figure out magically exactly what phrase they need to hear right now, which is going to not trigger them, as though you have control over that. None of that spells out being loved. None of that spells out being seen for who you are. All right? All right, so I'm repeating myself over and over again, so it must mean it's time to take questions. I'm happy to take questions if you want to. I don't need to answer your questions. Let's see here. Best thing to do is to ask me a question. Otherwise, I'll probably psychoanalyze you. They all split, this person says. After a while, you become hypersensitive. Hello? Sorry, I'm just finishing up my other call, and then I'll take a look at that. So I know it's late where you are. Give me 15 or 20 minutes. Okay, thanks. All right. Matthew says they all split. After a while, you become hypersensitive as to when a split may be coming on, but there's nothing you can do to stop it. I would say that hypersensitivity is also an illusion. It's a desire for you to think that you can control it or see it coming. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but again, look at all the responsibility when it comes to that. In a normal relationship, you don't have to do that. There's no need for you to try and figure out. There's just no need to do that. Island Eric Stone, a little over a week ago, I left my BPD girlfriend for the day 6th time. What? I finally gave up the toxic hope. Drama bond is strong and painful. I left my BPD girlfriend for the day 6th time. Anyway, I don't know what that means. I hope that you're able to stay away. And Will, question, why do they split after the most positive loving experiences? I've talked about that numerous times. I have videos on that subject. Borderlines, what causes borderlines is that they are, as infants, they are neglected. Okay, so as infants, they are neglected. Infants need love. If they don't get love, they will die, literally. They physically die if you don't give them attention and love. It kills them. Borderlines are infants that got just enough interaction that it prevented them from dying, but they're always on that verge. Emotionally and psychologically, they are on the verge of dying all the time. It's a horrible, horrible experience. Because what they needed most was love, their experience of themselves is rejection. It's the worst thing you can do to an infant is reject them. So they're constantly in this state on an unconscious level of feeling like they're going to die because they're being rejected. So they project this onto everything. If you are their romantic partner, they completely project this onto you. They make you 100% responsible for their well-being. And so when you love them, when you actually give them something, or when they internally have an experience of feeling intense love for you, it automatically triggers a response, which is a self-protective response to avoid being destroyed. Because the mother literally has the power of life and death over the child. So the mother has the power to kill the child by neglecting them, by rejecting them. So if they start to feel love for you, real intimacy, their immediate reaction is to want to destroy you. Because for them, if they truly let go of all control and let themselves feel vulnerable and loving, they're absolutely certain you're going to destroy them. And there's nothing you can do to convince them away from that. You think that there is, but there isn't. So that's why they split. They split, as you said, and I experienced this as well. My borderline would split not when I was thinking about leaving, not when I was upset or or unavailable. She would split on me after we had connected on a very deep level, when we had talked about our future, and when she had come to realize in her mind that I was the one for her on a really deep level. The next day she would split on me. The next day she would break up with me and say, I can't have anything to do with you. You're the most dangerous person in the world. And it was incredibly devastating to me, because the instinct that you have with normal people is if you can just prove to them that you love them and that you're trustworthy, they'll turn around and trust you and love you. But borderlines, the more that you become trustworthy to them, the more likely they are to devastate you. So that's why. But the real question is, who cares? It doesn't matter, because by me telling you this, there's a part of you that says, oh, okay, if I can just figure out how to, but there's no hope. Borderlines, untreated borderlines, are incapable of having any real loving relationship. If they get help, they can, after perhaps years, but that's why. You're absolutely right. You bonded on a magical level. You created real intimacy. The real intimacy made them start to feel love towards you, which made them have to react in a negative way towards you, because they felt you were going to do to them what their parents did. This guy says, this guy's never experienced a borderline. Well, that's what the other thing I'm saying as well, because my response to the first guy was, how long have you been in the relationship? She hasn't split on him yet. If he thinks he has the ability to control her, and his experience is if he adjusts himself in some way, then she'll respond positively. She hasn't split on him yet. She's just been emotionally dysregulated. But once he goes through a real split, like when she destroys him, devastates him, and leaves him crying in the dust and is nowhere to be found and refuses all contact from him, then he's going to understand what a split is like. But I don't think he's experienced that yet. If he has, he's in between splits, and he thinks that now he's got it. The reason why she split on me before is because I wasn't doing this right, I wasn't communicating this. And the truth is that she's in between splits. And once he gets it right, and he really connects with her, she's going to split on him again. Anyway, that's it. All right, so you guys get the drift here. I got to deal with this thing. I got to finalize my ticket out of Australia. and go back to who knows where. I think I'm going to go back to the States for a little while. And anyway, I gotta deal with that. So that's it for me. I will see you guys all very soon. Take care of yourselves. And again, do the 4 things. The only way out is to do the 4 things. If you don't do the 4 things, in my experience, you won't have a complete healing of that relationship. And that's what I'm offering you. My experience, and I'm not the only game in town, but my experience is if you want to completely heal from that relationship, you have to do the 4 things. If you don't do all 4 of the things, then I can't guarantee complete healing. I'm completely healed of my borderline ex, 0 pain, 0 negativity, 0 sadness, 0 feelings of rejection, 0 thinking about them. I'm not angry. I don't have any resentment. None of that. And that was impossible for me before I did the 4 things. All right. That's it. I'll see you.